Wait a minute.
Have you ever wondered what went on behind the scenes of one of the greatest comedy acts in history? Well, today's video is an absolute treat because we've got none other than the brains behind the brawn, the man with the master plan, Moe Howard himself. Get ready as Moe spills the beans and unveils the untold truth about the Three Stooges. Moe Howard, also known as the Boss Stooge, began his acting journey in 1909 with small roles in silent Vitagraph films. At 17, he joined a showboat troupe and appeared in short comedy films. In 1922, Moe, along with his brothers Shemp and Larry Fine, teamed up with vaudeville comic Ted Healey to form the Three Stooges. They toured and made films together for 10 years before parting ways. Throughout Moe's 66-year career, he featured in over 250 films, including 190 Three Stooges shorts. Moe was the leader of the group. He was born in a small Jewish community near Brooklyn, and his famous bowl cut originated from a childhood decision to cut his shoulder-length hair. Despite facing bullying in school, Moe pursued his passion for acting, eventually joining the theater scene in Brooklyn. He worked odd jobs until he started performing in minstrel shows along the Mississippi River. The Three Stooges' 50-year history saw personnel changes, and when Moe passed away, the act came to an end. Early days of the Three Stooges. For more than 80 years, people have enjoyed the hilarious and slapstick comedy of the Three Stooges. This iconic comedy team made 190 short films for Columbia Pictures between 1934 and 1959, and their popularity persisted through TV reruns in the 1970s and 80s. Even today, new fans discover their antics each year. Originating from vaudeville and early film, the Three Stooges, led by Moe Howard, made a lasting impact on humor with their mix of physical comedy, clever banter, and spontaneous wit. Moe teamed up with Ted Healey in 1922, and by 1925, Larry Fine joined the group. Together, they perfected their routines, blending slapstick verbal jokes and improvised chaos. Their fame soared in 1934 when they signed a contract with Columbia Pictures, leading to 204 short films over 24 years. The Three Stooges were known for their unique style, combining physical gags with witty dialogue. Moe, trying to control his chaotic household, often interacted with the hapless Curly and Larry, resulting in legendary eye pokes, head hits, and falls. Their quick-witted banter, filled with insults and catchphrases, added a touch of sophistication to their humor. Their ability to improvise and handle unexpected situations added spontaneity to their performances. Despite challenges like Curly's 1946 stroke, they persevered, with Shemp Howard briefly taking over. After Shemp's passing in 1955, Joe Besser and Joe DeRita filled in, allowing the group to continue until their official retirement in 1958. The Three Stooges' legacy lives on, entertaining audiences worldwide and influencing countless comedians. Their enduring appeal, a mix of physical humor, clever dialogue, and improvisational skill, remains a testament to their timeless humor that transcends generations. An interview with Moe Howard of the Three Stooges. Moe Howard, known for his aggressive antics in the Three Stooges, is actually a reserved, small man off stage. He fears the audience may someday pity rather than laugh at the Stooges. Their comedy involves a lot of violent humor, with Moe often hitting, slapping, and poking his co-stars Curly and Larry. The act, originating during Prohibition as the Lost Three Souls, is famous for scenes like Moe's fist hitting Curly's head and Larry's midsection, drawing laughter from diverse audiences. Despite this, Howard, an experienced showman who started as a drunkard son in riverboat drama, understands that audience reactions can quickly change from laughter to sympathy. "The public can't see old people cracking each other," Moe said in an interview at the Imperial Hotel. "They'll wind up feeling sorry for us. We work hard to be funny. We want people to laugh at us, not pity us." Howard, the last remaining member of the original Stooges, including his late brother Shemp, acknowledges that he's nearing retirement. Either Curly or Larry will follow suit or part ways. This will mark the end of one of the entertainment industry's most cherished and long-standing acts. "Maybe," Howard says reflectively, "we could get 3 young guys and teach them all the routines and the pratfalls, and the timing too. That's very important." Howard's got a book in the works, his autobiography called I Stooge to Conquer. He's going to share about growing up in Brooklyn, ditching school to hang out at Vitagraph Film Studio, and doing small jobs for early movie stars like John Bunny and Fatty Arbuckle. He'll talk about working with comedy legends like Ted Healey, a friend from his youth, and how he sported his wild sheepdog hairstyle way back in 1921, way before the Beatles made it big. Not a lot of folks can reminisce about performing melodramas on Mississippi riverboats, but Howard can. He'll take you back to 1919, standing on a tilting deck, playing Simon Slade, the boy who tragically ends his father's life in 10 Nights in a Barroom. Every time Howard talks about the past, it shows how old he is. But when someone asks him directly how old he is, he just says, "I'll celebrate my 45th year in show business June 11th, and I started very young." Howard can tell you about one of the most amazing and successful comebacks in show business. The Stooges' journey was a roller coaster. They started with performances at Borscht Circuit summer resorts, then moved to nightclubs. In 1934, they joined Columbia Studios, making 204 short comedies until their contract ended on January 15, 1958, the longest in movie history. It seems like the Stooges' career was over then, but just a few months after their contract ended, their old movies hit TV and were a hit. The studio raked in $7 million, but the Stooges, with no rights to the films, didn't earn a dime. The old movies quickly became popular on TV. Fans wanted more, and the producers were keen to deliver. The Stooges agreed, but this time they asked for 50% of the profits. They went on to make more shorts and full-length movies like The Stooges Go Around the World in a Daze. They even did shows as far as Toronto, Canada, where they broke a 76-year attendance record at the Canadian National Exhibition. In Pittsburgh, there were some unique shows where kids had to bring their parents to a nightclub. This idea came from a promoter who liked creative angles. At these shows, the Stooges received a bunch of fan letters written in simple handwriting from their really young fans. "We didn't make any money out of those first TV movies," Howard says, "but they sure did a lot for us." Howard mentioned that even though he and his partners are really close friends at work, they don't hang out much in their personal time. Each one is quite unique. Curly, known for his crew cut and silly antics, prefers to stay in and read serious books like Rise and Fall of the Third Reich. Larry loves being around people, enjoys detective stories, and occasionally goes out for a fun night. Howard and his wife are traveling the world right now. During the trip, Howard might look for some funny places they can use for a travel comedy video that they're planning to make. "We'll be in Champagne, France, in one sequence. All three of us will jump into a wine vat and start crushing grapes. Curly eats one, I hit him, and the fight starts. The owner chases us out." Whereas there's a lot more to the story of the Three Stooges than just slapstick, jokes, and pie throwing. Now, let's dive into the lesser-known facts about one of the most loved comedy groups ever. The Three Stooges were originally second bananas. Mark and Ellen Scordato's book, The Three Stooges, tells us that Shemp and his younger brother Moe started out as a comedy duo named Howard and Howard in 1915. They didn't do too well at first and split up when Shemp had to join the army. But he wasn't in the military for long and quickly rejoined Moe on stage. In 1922, they teamed up with comedian Ted Healey, who was known for his loud and rowdy humor. Moe and Shemp were great at setting up Healey's slapstick jokes, and the audience loved them. In 1925, Larry Fine, also known as Louis Feinberg, joined them, forming the original group. They got into movies with the 1930 comedy Soup to Nuts and did so well that they were offered their own movie deal. But Healey, worried about his career, got the studio to cancel the deal. When Moe, Shemp, and Larry found out, they were so mad that they left Healey. They briefly worked with Healey again, but Shemp left in 1932 over money issues. Moe then brought in his younger brother Curly, creating the famous Stooges lineup we know. After doing a few films with MGM, they finally split from Healey in 1934 and signed with Columbia Pictures. Shemp was a bundle of nerves. Shemp, the third of 5 brothers, was born as Samuel Horwitz on March 17, 1895 in Brooklyn, New York. His nickname Shemp came from how his mom, with her strong accent, said Sam. It sounded like Shemp to his brothers. In his 1977 book, Moe Howard and the Three Stooges, Moe fondly remembered Shemp as a bit of a troublemaker. Moe wrote that Shemp was always crying, ruining his clothes, and causing a fuss. Whenever there was work to do, Shemp suddenly got a stomachache or a headache to avoid it. Though Shemp acted tough on screen, he actually had a lot of fears. He was scared of water, dogs, heights, and cars. His wife, Babe, said he was afraid of everything. During World War II, when Babe was out as an air raid warden, she'd come back to find Shemp hiding behind the piano, scared. His friend and fellow comedian Mousy Garner mentioned in the documentary Stooges, The Men Behind the Mayhem, that Shemp was terrified even of his own shadow and always looked over his shoulder as if someone was following him. Jules White made the Three Stooges movie stars. Back in the 1930s, Columbia Pictures' section for short films was where a lot of once famous comedians ended up. It was known for not being very creative and for paying poorly. It was often the last stop for comedians from the silent film era who couldn't make it in movies with sound. But everything changed when the Three Stooges joined Columbia in 1934. They turned the studio short film division into a really successful comedy hub. Jules White, the boss of Columbia Short Films, played a big part in making the Three Stooges stars. He used to work at MGM and knew the Stooges from their time with Healey. White believed in them and made sure that they had the best writers, directors, and cast to work with. According to the Stooge File trivia book, the Three Stooges made shorts for 25 years under White's guidance, with White directing and producing most of them. White, who had worked with many famous comedians, told Jeffrey Forrester, the author of Stooge Chronicles, that the Stooges were really something. He said he'd worked with big names like Buster Keaton, but thanks to TV, the Stooges became more famous than anything else he'd ever done. Curly lived a tragically short life. Jerome Horowitz, the youngest brother of Moe and Shemp, changed his name to Jerome Curly Howard and joined Ted Healey's show when Shemp left. The book, The Three Stooges, says Curly almost didn't become a Stooge because he was too good looking. His wavy hair and neat mustache didn't match Moe's bowl cut or Larry's messy hair. So Curly decided to shave his head to impress Healey, and it worked. He got in as Curly. Curly is often seen as the most loved Stooge. People said he was either really shy or the life of the party when not performing. He got married 5 times, including a first marriage that ended because his mom wanted it to. His last marriage was to Valerie Newman in 1947. After his 1941 divorce from Elaine Ackerman, Curly started feeling really down and began eating and drinking a lot to cope. This started to mess with his work. Still, he got married and divorced again. His marriage to Marion Bushbaum didn't even last a year. In 1946, while filming Half-Wit's Holiday, Curly had a serious stroke that forced him to stop doing comedy. He did show up one last time with the Stooges in the 1947 film Hold That Lion. After more strokes, Curly spent his last year in the hospital. Jerome Curly Howard passed away on January 18, 1952, when he was just 48 years old. Shemp returned to the Three Stooges as a favorite. While Larry Fine, Moe Howard, and Curly Howard were becoming famous as the Three Stooges in the 1930s and 40s, their former member Shemp Howard was doing pretty well on his own as a comic actor. He was in a bunch of funny short films and movies, like the Joe Palooka boxing comedies, and even had his own series of shorts. In the early 1940s, Shemp even worked with the famous comedy duo Abbott and Costello in the Navy and Hold That Ghost. The book, The Three Stooges, by Mark and Ellen Scordato, says that after Curly's 1941 divorce, his health really went downhill. Drinking and depression, along with some strokes that weren't caught early, really hurt his ability to be funny and affected the quality of the Stooges' work. By 1946, a bad stroke made Curly retire. With Curly gone, Moe had to think fast to keep the group and their careers going. The obvious choice was to get Shemp back. Even though Shemp was doing well on his own, he came back to the Stooges knowing that Moe and Larry needed him. But he had to take a 50% pay cut and give up some freedom to do it. Moe had hoped Curly would come back eventually, but Curly's health only got worse. Shemp stayed with the Three Stooges until he died of a heart attack in 1955. Columbia Pictures took advantage of the Three Stooges. Harry Cohn, who was in charge of Columbia Pictures, kind of acted like a king. He even made his office look like one used by Italian leader Mussolini, as the Chicago Tribune pointed out. He had a reputation for being pretty harsh, especially with the Three Stooges. When he brought the Stooges on board in 1934, he made them renew their contracts every year, making them think their department was nearly done for. This wasn't entirely true. Sure, short films were becoming less popular because of TV and movies, But Columbia's shorts department was still going strong for many years. Meanwhile, the Three Stooges were bringing in a lot of money for the studio. Each Stooge was paid up to $20,000 a year, but the studio was earning way more. According to the New York Times, the Stooges didn't even realize how famous they were. Things got even worse because their manager, Harry Rom, was cheating them too. Rom was pretty close to Cohn. Moe's daughter, Joan Howard Mauer, shared with the Times that her dad, who had a tough upbringing, didn't really know how to stand up for himself and ask for what they were really worth. He was scared of causing trouble and lacked the confidence to tell Cohn that they needed more money. A whole bunch of knuckleheads. Even though Larry, Moe, and Curly are the most famous lineup of the Three Stooges, they had a tough time finding a permanent third member. Originally, it was Moe Howard, Shemp Howard, and Larry Fine in Ted Healey's vaudeville troupe. When Shemp left in 1932, Curly Howard joined. They made a few films with MGM between 1933 and 1934. In 1934, Moe, Larry, and Curly left Healey to work for Columbia Pictures. Curly's health declined in the 1940s, and he had a stroke. Shemp returned to the group and stayed with them until his death in 1955. In the late 1950s, comedian Joe Besser replaced Shemp for a few shorts. Columbia Pictures closed its short film division in 1957, ending the Stooges' time there. Besser turned down an offer to make appearances with Larry and Moe to take care of his wife, who had a heart attack. The last comedian to join as the third Stooge on screen was Joe DeRita, known as Curly Joe, because he looked like Curly Howard. He stayed with the group until the late 1960s. The curious case of the fake Shemps. Shemp Howard's death in 1955 was a really sad moment for Moe Howard and Larry Fine, who were his surviving Stooge buddies. They were facing a tough situation because they had 4 short films that Shemp was supposed to be in, but he couldn't finish them due to his passing. To complete these movies, they brought in an actor named Joe Palma, who didn't quite look like Shemp and sometimes ended up making the audience unintentionally laugh with his performance. Filmmaker Sam Raimi and actor Bruce Campbell, who are famous for their horror film Evil Dead, were big fans of the Three Stooges when they were growing up. They kept an eye out for Joe Palma in the later Stooges shorts. In Bruce Campbell's book, If Chins Could Kill, he talks about how they could always spot when the fake Shemp was on screen while watching the Stooges as teenagers. They found it really amusing and started using the term fake Shemp to describe any actor in their own homemade movies who didn't have lines or was standing in for someone else. When they made Evil Dead, they officially credited the fake Shemps because most of their cast fell into this category. Thanks to Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell, the term fake Shemp or just Shemp is now commonly used in the film industry to describe any replacement actor whose appearance is concealed or altered using camera tricks, makeup, or digital effects. When it came to money, Moe was no Stooge. After splitting from Ted Healey in 1934, Moe Howard, the first Stooge, basically took charge of the Stooges. According to director Edward Burns, Moe was the boss both on and off screen. Burns explained that Moe was like the leader in real life, just as you'd seen in their movies. He was the one with the smarts and sensitivity, even though he could be touchy at times. Moe Howard wasn't just a funny man, he was a savvy business person too. He wisely invested his money from showbiz into things like real estate. He owned an apartment building, a drugstore, and a furniture store called the Howard Furniture Company in Burbank, California, as mentioned in the Stooge File Trivia book. Even though some people thought Moe faced tough times after the Stooges lost their movie deal in the 1950s, Burns set the record straight. He mentioned that he gave Moe a small role as a taxi driver in a science fiction film in the late 1950s, and many thought it was a nice gesture to help Moe when he was down. But in reality, Moe was far from being down. He was a millionaire. Larry Fine's dad paid him to leave the family business. Larry Fine, the middle Stooge with the wild hair, who always seemed to have bad luck, was actually born as Louis Feinberg on October 5, 1902, in South Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. In the book The Three Stooges by Mark and Ellen Scordato, it's mentioned that Larry's dad, Joseph, came to the U.S. from Russia to escape anti-Semitism. After arriving here, Joseph married Fanny Lieberman, and Larry was their first child. Right from a young age, Larry loved entertaining people. When he was just 2 years old, He would dance around in his family's jewelry shop to make his relatives laugh. At the age of 4, Larry accidentally burned his arm with acid, and that's when he started playing the violin as part of his recovery. Unlike Moe Howard, who was good with business, Larry didn't have a head for that stuff. He was all about entertaining. When he grew up, he gave working in the family's jewelry business a try, but he couldn't resist goofing off and being funny, which didn't go over well at work. Eventually, Larry's dad gave him $100 and 2 weeks' worth of salary to quit the job. Larry took that money and decided to pursue a career as a comedian. The Stooges in comic books and animation. Starting in 1949, fans of the Three Stooges could enjoy their favorite knuckleheads in comic form, thanks to Jubilee Publishing. As the Stooge File trivia book tells us, the first colorful version of the Stooges featured Moe, Larry, and Curly, and only lasted for 2 issues. But in 1953, St. John Publishing brought the Stooges back to the comic scene, this time with Shemp as the third Stooge. This comic series ran for 48 issues and even had a few special 3D editions. Then, in 1959, Dell Publishing revived the Stooges in comic form, and these comics kept going until 1972. These Dell comics followed the adventures of Larry, Moe, and Curly Joe. Fast forward to 2021, and American Mythology Publishing introduced a brand new comic series called The Three Stooges Through the Ages. Even though the Stooges couldn't make a live-action TV series happen, they found success as cartoon characters. In 1965, the animated series The New Three Stooges hit the airwaves. It had short live-action intros by Moe, Larry, and Curly Joe, and the trio even voiced their own cartoon versions. In 1977, things took a bizarre turn when the Robonic Stooges premiered as part of the CBS Saturday morning show The Skatebirds. This show turned Larry, Moe, and Curly into clumsy cyborg superheroes. With the voices of Paul Winchell, Joe Baker, and Frank Welker, the Robonic Stooges eventually got their own 30-minute show in 1978. The Three Stooges couldn't get a break on TV. In 1958, the Three Stooges had a comeback when their short comedies started airing on TV, and a whole new generation of kids started watching them after school. Even though they became popular on TV, the Stooges had a tough time making it big in the television world. Their first shot at TV came back in October 1949 with a pilot for a possible weekly show called Jerks of All Trades. The show was made for ABC television by Phil Burrell, who was the brother of the famous comedian Milton Berle. In it, Larry Fine, Moe Howard, and Shemp Howard played clumsy interior decorators who accidentally wrecked their rich client's house. But this show never actually aired because of a contract rule that said the Stooges couldn't do a TV show that competed with their Columbia shorts. In 1960, the Three Stooges gave TV another try with Three Stooges Scrapbook. It was shot in color and featured Moe, Larry, and Curly Joe Dorita, but it didn't get much interest from TV networks. Some parts of the pilot were turned into black and white and used in the 1962 Stooges movie, The Three Stooges in Orbit. Then in 1969, Moe, Larry, and Curly Joe made a pilot called Kooks Tour. In this show, the Stooges retired from performing and traveled around the country, showing off the beauty of America's outdoors. But shortly after making Kooks Tour, Larry had a stroke, and the plans for the TV series were canceled. Emil Sitka, the fourth Stooge. Even though Curly Joe's tombstone says the last Stooge, the final member of the famous comedy team was actually Emil Sitka. He teamed up with the Stooges in their short films during the 1940s and 50s, appearing in popular ones like Brideless Groom and Jensen and Jam. Sitka was a talented comedian who sometimes outshone the Stooges with his hilarious antics. Jules White, a producer for the Three Stooges for a long time, praised Sitka's versatility, noting that he could effortlessly switch between roles from a gangster to a governor and more. According to Three Stooges writer Elwood Ullman, Sitka was so exceptional that the writers created specific characters just for him. Sitka first appeared in Halfwit's Holiday in 1946, which happened to be Curly Howard's last appearance with the group. He continued collaborating with the Stooges at Columbia through the 1960s. After Larry Fine left the Three Stooges in the 1970s, Moe Howard invited Sitka to become a full-fledged Stooge. In 1975, they had plans to star in a brand new Stooges film alongside Joe Dorita. Unfortunately, the project got scrapped due to Moe's declining health, and he passed away from lung cancer that same year. Joe DeRita, and the new Three Stooges. After Joe Besser left in 1958, Moe Howard and Larry Fine asked comedian Joe DeRita to join the Three Stooges. DeRita had a background in showbiz, performing with his family, the DeRita sisters and Jr., from a young age. He also had experience in movies during the 1940s, appearing in films for Warner Brothers, MGM, Paramount, and Columbia Pictures. DeRita's first attempt as a Stooge didn't go well, with a disappointing performance at a Holiday Inn in Bakersfield, California, in October 1958. However, when the Stooges shorts started airing on TV, they gained popularity again. To connect with their new fans, DeRita shaved his head and took on the persona of Curly Joe, capitalizing on his resemblance to the beloved Stooge Curly Howard. During the late 1950s and 1960s, DeRita joined the Stooges in 6 full-length films, the animated series The New Three Stooges, and 2 TV pilot projects that didn't get picked up. With Moe Howard's approval, DeRita started his own comedy group called The New Three Stooges in the early 1930s. He enlisted the help of former Stooges stuntman Frank Mitchell and Mousy Garner, who had worked with Ted Healey. They made a few live appearances but eventually disbanded due to DeRita's worsening eyesight. A legacy of lunacy. Over the past 80 years, the Three Stooges have become a lasting part of American pop culture. While their popularity has had its ups and downs, they're still loved in the 21st century. New fans keep discovering their classic shorts through TV and streaming every year. You can find Larry, Moe, and Curly's faces on all sorts of stuff like t-shirts, dolls, phone cases, and even premium coffee. They've even got their very own museum called the Stoogium, located in Ambler, Pennsylvania. It's like a treasure trove of Stooge stuff, with original props, costumes, and personal belongings of the Stooges. The Stoogium is all about keeping the Three Stooges legacy active and is also the headquarters of the Three Stooges fan club, which had 2,000 members from all over the world. The Three Stooges have always been a hit with guys known for their crazy slapstick humor. But even women, who didn't used to be big fans, are starting to like them now. In the past, some women thought it wasn't ladylike to enjoy their humor because it seemed less sophisticated. But things are changing, and more women are coming around to appreciate their comedy. Well, folks, there you have it. The untold truth about the Three Stooges, straight from the horse's mouth, Moe Howard himself. I hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of slapstick comedy and the iconic trio. Remember, the laughter never has to end. Feel free to drop your favorite Stooges moments or comments down below. We'd love to hear from you. All right, that's it for today. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.